Are you struggling to determine whether you should start or continue your PhD program? In this video, we're going to talk about the top 3 questions and answering the question, should I get a PhD? This video is part 3 in the series on should I get a PhD? And you can check out part 1 here talking about is it worth getting a PhD? The first question is, will I do well in graduate school? And so a lot of us want to project out and determining, if I actually go through this experience, am I even going to be good at it? And oftentimes what I find is that people who are actually considering going to graduate school are most likely going to do fairly well in graduate school. And this is primarily because if you're someone that goes, 5 more years of schooling sounds really excited and it's something I really want to do, then you're probably someone who does fairly well at school. And so you're most likely going to be more successful and productive in graduate school than someone who thinks, I don't want to do 5 more years of schooling, that sounds awful, I hate school. Well, obviously there's probably reasons that you feel that way, and you're most likely not going to be able to do that well at school if you're just going to hate every minute of it. If you're still trying to figure out if you're actually going to do well at school, think about the top 2 skills you probably need to be good at getting your PhD. And so the first one is independence. Are you able to think through stuff independently? If you have questions, are you able to find the people to ask those questions? But are you also able to critically think through things and try and move forward on those things even if there's not someone around you kind of guiding you along? That's really an important skill that you're going to need to have through your PhD experience to actually be successful. The next skill that's going to make you successful in grad school is time management. So if you are left to your own and don't have any deadlines put on you, are you able to complete a large amount of work in a realistic time frame? And that's something that, some people just really struggle with, and unless they have very clear deadlines constantly put on them, they're not going to work towards that goal. If that's the type of person you are, then grad school may be very difficult for you, because whenever you're doing research, you don't tend to have hard deadlines for getting results, but you still need to be consistent. And if you want to learn more about research consistency, I have that video linked above as well. But you need to be consistent in your research to constantly move it forward, even when there's not a deadline there for you to meet. And so that's going to be a really important skill in being able to actually be successful in graduate school. The final thing to determine on whether you're going to be able to do well in graduate school is your capability to bounce back. And so there are going to be times when you don't get the results you're expecting, or someone has mean or derogatory comments for you on some of your work, or other things that come into your life that put you down. And can you take the time and process that and then be able to bounce back and say, okay, I learned from that and I'm going to do better, rather than not learning from it and getting bitter that bad things happened and blaming everyone else. And so if you're able to actually learn from that criticism and get better, or when you know that criticism isn't really accurate and is just derogatory for no reason, are you able to shake that off within a reasonable time frame and get back to what you really need to be doing? It's going to be really important for if you want to do well in grad school. Question 2 is, can I even get into grad school? This is important if you are still applying for grad schools or thinking about even applying for grad schools. And this is something that the first thing you need to do is be realistic about your undergraduate career. And so for a lot of grad schools, you need to have a 3.0 GPA to get into. And so if you were really struggling in your undergraduate career and you weren't able to make around a 3.0 GPA, then you may have to consider alternative routes, either before you go and get your PhD, or just in general not going and getting a PhD. The other thing you need to consider is, if your GPA was lower, why was it lower? Was it something that you really struggled your freshman year of college and then you got better as you were able to kind of adapt to the college life, and then in your later years you were actually doing really, really well in school, but you just never made up that difference, then that's something you want to talk about in your personal statement. And you may actually be able to get into graduate school that way because you have shown that you can actually do well in schooling. The third question you might have in determining whether you should go get your PhD is, what if I find out that a PhD isn't right for me? And so you get into your PhD program and you just realize that you absolutely hate it. Well, then first of all, you won't regret having not done it, because you won't have to ask, well, what if I would have done it? Because you just realize that you don't like it. And then second of all, you can always leave your PhD program. If you're in the first week of your PhD program, I had someone in my cohort in my PhD program leave within the first week of the program. They realized it wasn't for them, they didn't like it, and they left. And so you can always have kind of two options for leaving a PhD program. The first is getting a master's, and so if you realize that a master's better aligns with your goals, then you can get a master's and then leave your program and move on into what you really want to do. And then you can also just leave the program with no degree. And so this is something that if you get in there and you're within your first semester, you don't like it, you want to go back to your previous job, you just want to go find a job, you realize this isn't it for you, there's no shame in that. There's no problem with you just realizing, I don't want to do this, and this isn't what I want my life to be, and that's perfectly fine. And then you would just leave your program and then continue on your life, and you wouldn't ever have to question, that was always something I wanted to do, but I just never got up the courage to go do it. So this video concludes the series in answering, should I get a PhD? And I really hope at this point going through, is a PhD worth it? The pros and cons of getting that PhD, and then in this video answering some of those questions about whether you should get that PhD has helped you in making your decision. And if you liked this content, please hit the thumbs up button below, and also subscribe to this channel for more videos on graduate school. If you can't wait till next week for more videos, check out these videos right here all about graduate school, either getting into graduate school, going through the graduate school process, or finding work after graduate school. And I will see you guys next week.